I'm Alex Michelson. We've got a diverse set of opinions on a busy news week, including a congresswoman at the center of so many big stories. With us, Congresswoman Barbara Lee to talk infrastructure, the border, and her role in making Juneteenth a national holiday. And a very different perspective from conservative commentator Michael Knowles. His new book says conservatives are losing the culture due to political correctness. The Issue Is starts right now.
Broadcasting across California, California's only statewide political show. You're watching The Issue Is.
And welcome to The Issue Is. I'm Elex Michelson. A very busy news week. With us, one of the best known and most progressive members of Congress. We begin with Kamala Harris visiting the U.S.-Mexican border for the first time as vice president. She's been assigned to examine the root causes of our immigration challenges. She previously stopped in Guatemala, Mexico, and this week in El Paso, Texas.
Every place has been a theme, has been people don't want to leave home if they don't have to.
Join us now to talk about that and a whole lot more. Congresswoman Barbara Lee. She represents the East Bay in Congress. She served in elective office since 1990 and was the only member of Congress to oppose the authorization for the Afghanistan war back in the day. Congresswoman Lee, welcome back to The Issue Is.
Thank you for having me. Nice seeing you.
All right, we'll talk more about Afghanistan in a moment, but let's begin in El Paso, Texas, which is literally where you began. That's your hometown. Kamala Harris's hometown, of course, in your district. You've been a friend and mentor to her for years. What did you make of the trip?
Well, I wish I could have been with her, but I'm in Washington, D.C. We had some major work to do here. But let me just tell you, I'm so pleased that she went to my hometown, El Paso, Texas. I serve as the chair of the subcommittee that funds much of our diplomatic and humanitarian and development assistance. And we work very closely together to make sure that the challenges that are faced by the people in Central America are really addressed at the root level.
Of course, she did not visit the Rio Grande Valley, where we're seeing some of those really dramatic pictures of people crossing recently. So what do we do? How do we address those migrant issues?
The bottom line is we have to lead with our values. We have to make sure that the children who have been in these, in many respects, they've been deplorable places, that they get into homes and to the shelters right away. We have to make sure that the resources are there for the issues around security, for the issues around economic development. Of course, there have been hurricanes and natural disasters in these countries, but people want to stay at their home. I haven't met anyone who has migrated to the United States, and I've been to many, many border towns, who want to leave. And so what we have to do is make sure that Vice President Harris's work is funded and that the strategies are there to make sure that those issues that are challenging the citizens and residents of these countries are addressed at the root level.
You know, there's so many big stories this week. Another big story is infrastructure. President Biden announcing a bipartisan infrastructure deal this week. Here's the framework of it. $579 billion overall, $109 billion for roads and bridges, $66 billion for railways, $65 billion for broadband. Are you ready to vote yes?
First, we're just looking now at what the bill would entail and drilling down on many of the provisions. But let me tell you, I'm really pleased that the president said he's not going to sign one bill, but he's going to sign two. We have to have reconciliation for the second one to make sure that the child care economy and that the care economy and that our children receive the type of permanency in terms of the child tax credit, all of the issues that are about human infrastructure.
Some of the Republican senators are saying that they feel a little misled, saying that you have to pass one and pass the other, that they were not necessarily going for some of that human infrastructure funding. Are you concerned that that could kill the deal?
Look, we know we have a lot of work to do. The negotiations have to move forward. I don't know what the Republicans are talking about. Their constituents have benefited from everything the Democrats have done, where we did not get one Republican vote. And so we have to keep moving forward to make sure that children receive the type of resources to be lifted out of poverty. And hopefully they'll see the light and do the work that's necessary to support their constituents. This is not about red states or blue states. This is about the American people. And we did it for their constituents before. Hopefully they'll be able to vote for their constituents' quality of life also.
You know, you are one of the best-known progressives in Congress. Another one of the best-known progressives in Congress is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, your colleague from New York. She tweeted a picture of all the white senators who negotiated this deal, and here's the caption. She put this out. The diversity of this bipartisan coalition pretty perfectly conveys which communities get centered and which get left behind when leaders prioritize bipartisan deal-making over inclusive lawmaking, which prioritizes delivering the most impact possible for the most people. Do you agree with her?
I certainly do. That was glaring. I mean, if no one recognized that as an issue and a problem, then they're in many ways tone deaf. I mean, it was quite prominent in terms of who's making the decisions, who's in the negotiations, and how the diversity and necessity for people of color to be elected of the Senate should be a high priority for us all.
Now let's go to a big story that is a long time coming for you. Back in 2001, you were the only member of Congress to vote against the authorization of the Afghanistan war. At the time, you warned that it would be an endless war. Well, 20 years later, Congress finally siding with you and repealed that authorization. How does that feel? And are you telling them told you so?
No, I'm not, because we've lost several thousand of our brave troops. What you see now is finally a realization, and I'm really pleased that President Biden has called for our troops to come home. Having said that, we have to make sure that women and children are protected, that the security is what it should be. We've trained hundreds of thousands of Afghan security forces. But when I voted against the 2001 authorization, it was 60 words. And it was a blank check. It gave any president the authority to go to war forever. That's why I called it forever. It was the forever war authorization. And there's no way we should allow that authorization to be in place. It's been used 41 times at least in a declassified report by the Library of Congress in 19 countries, none of which are related to 9/11. And so it was overly broad, and it took away members of Congress's responsibilities in terms of their constitutional responsibilities to vote yes or no for an authorization to use force if the president so chooses to go to war.
Well, let's talk about some actual bipartisanship in Washington, which we don't see all that often. And this is another event you've said is a long time coming. That's the signing of a bill to make Juneteenth a national holiday. You were on stage with the president and the first vice president, who's African American, to witness history up close. You got one of the pens. What was going through your mind in that historic moment?
Oh, so much was. I just have to tell you, first of all, it is a long time coming for this country to recognize African Americans' freedom. But Juneteenth also is personal for me. I just have to say, and one of the reasons I was so excited to be there with the president and Vice President Harris, Opal Lee, and all my colleagues is that my grandfather was born in Galveston, Texas in 1875, 10 years after General Granger came to Galveston to let the enslaved Africans know that they were freed. But also my great-grandmother, Fannie Wilson, was born enslaved in one of the towns right around Galveston. And so we always celebrated Juneteenth. As a child, I was born and raised in El Paso, Texas. And in California, of course, those of us from Texas continue to celebrate it. And so now the entire country has a chance to be with us and has a chance to salute us. Black Lives Do Matter, and has a chance to really learn more about the history of African Americans and make a commitment to move forward for justice and equity and repairing the damage of the past 401 years.
I mean, were you thinking of that little girl growing up in El Paso and the fact that you're now at the White House and part of this ceremony?
Yes, I was. And I was thinking about, oh boy, it's been a struggle. And Dr. Maya Angelou says, you know, I am the dream and the hopes of the slaves, and still I rise. And so it's not just for me personally, but it's for every single African American in this country who has had to fight so hard just for justice. So this was one step toward justice and one step toward truth. and one step toward racial healing.
What a hopeful place to end. Thank you very much. Up next, we're going to get a different point of view from conservative commentator Michael Knowles, who is standing by. But first, I don't know if you know this, but we like to play music on this show, and we like it when our guests dance. And last time you were with us, you told us that Beyonce is your favorite. So as we go to break, we're going to give it to Queen Bee and Who Run the World and give you a chance to show off those moves. Take it away.
Uh-oh.
Who run the world, girls? 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 Who run this mother? Who run this mother? Who run this mother? Who run this mother?
Thank you very much, Congresswoman. That was really great.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice movement. Bye-bye.
Who run the world, girls? Who run the world, girls? Who run this mother? Who run this mother? Who run this mother? Who run this mother?
In 2017, Michael Knowles wrote the book Reasons to Vote for a Democrat, a Comprehensive Guide. The joke was, it was full of mostly blank pages, like foreign policy and nothing, and immigration and nothing. The book turned out to be a #1 bestseller, promoted by President Trump on Twitter. Well, now Knowles is out with his second book, and it includes actual writing. It's called Speechless: Controlling Words, Controlling Minds. Michael Knowles is a familiar face around here. He's host of the Michael Knowles Show on Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire. He hosts the Book Club on PragerU and co-hosts one of the top podcasts on the internet, The Verdict with Ted Cruz. Michael, welcome back to The Issue Is, and congrats on the book.
Thank you so much, Alex. It's great to be with you. And I do, by the way, I want to push back a little bit. You mentioned that I had that blank book that came out and it didn't have any words. I did not have any words, but I had a very extensive bibliography. And then in this book, which was a little more, I have the bibliography, but I've got the rest of the words too.
Is there part of you that's nervous that your book without words will sell better than your book with words?
There is no question. It's going to outsell it. It is my magnum opus. But I did think it would be really funny if my main book, you know, the first one that I became known for was without any words, if my second book would then be entirely about words and called Speechless. So
yes,
that's
is.
what we did.
And I got it here. You obviously got it there as well. The book's really great. I enjoyed reading it. Let me read from the beginning of the book, which kind of lays out some of your main point. It says, ironically, to your point, my second book spills more ink on the failures of the right, which through decades of incompetence has permitted political correctness to invert our culture. The more conservatives attempt to fight political correctness, the worse the problem seems to get. What do you mean by that?
Well, I think a lot of people expected this book to just be a polemic against the left, and there's plenty of that, I suppose. But I really set out to take the leftist thinkers who developed political correctness, what we now call wokeness or cancel culture. I wanted to take them seriously. I think a lot of people on the right flatter ourselves, and we say that we understand free speech and censorship so much better than the left does. I don't think that's true. I think that the left-wing thinkers who came up with PC are really brilliant people. I think they understand speech and censorship a lot better than we do. And I think, frankly, if conservatives want to push back against political correctness, which we have failed to do effectively for decades now, I think we need to take out our pen and paper and learn some lessons from the left.
So what do you think is the #1 thing that Republicans, that the conservatives can do to start winning based off of what you're saying?
I think we need to advance a substantive political standard. I don't think it is enough to argue about the defense of free speech in the abstract or the freedom of belief in the abstract. I think that freedom of speech doesn't mean anything to people who don't have anything to say. And so I think we need to be able to say some things are true, some things are false, some things are good, some things are bad. A related example that shows a divide on the right, and that's this phenomenon of drag queen story hour, which it involves men dressing up as women, and in some cases twerking and engaging in sexual dances for little kids, toddlers at the public library or even in schools. And there are the squishy conservative types who say that this is wonderful. It's actually a blessing of liberty to have perverts twerking for toddlers. And there's another group of conservatives who say, we really shouldn't permit this. The founding fathers are rolling over in their grave at the idea that this is a blessing of liberty, and we can actually say this is a bad thing. And what the squishier types will say is, well, look, if you ban drag queen story hour, then the left is going to tell us that we can't go to church on Sunday. And first of all, just as a practical matter, they already told us we couldn't go to church on Sunday for the better part of a year during the coronavirus lockdown, even as other institutions were allowed to remain open, like marijuana dispensaries. So practically, I think it's bogus. But furthermore, I think if we can't distinguish between twerking for kids and going to church, then what we're really saying is we have no faculties of reason, we have no moral conscience that we can rely on, and that's fine if that's what your view is. But then you have to admit that we have to give up self-government.
While we have you, I want to get a quick few takes on the news, because you're so often one of our panelists here on The Issue Is. President Trump holding a rally this weekend, heading to the border next week. He's been so effective at using language for political gain for himself. What do you make of his role in the Republican Party right now, and should he be the nominee in 2024?
He is an absolute poet, and I'm not even really joking too much about that. By using the phrase, "Make America Great Again," by using so many of his colorful phrases, he really understood how to weaponize language in a way that basically only the left usually does, and he did it very well. So what does that mean moving forward? It seems as though President Trump is going to run again. He's made a number of signals about this. This is really bad news for Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis is doing a lot of great stuff in the Republican Party, and specifically in Florida, and he's running very much in the Trump lane. Even their body language and the way they speak seem to be similar. I must say, though, I hesitate to make any predictions about 2024. I don't think anybody in 2013 would have predicted that Trump would be the nominee in 2016. And so there's a whole lot that can change moving forward. But I do think, regardless of whether it's Trump or someone else, they really need to learn from Trump. Trump recognized in 2016 that political correctness was the gravest threat to America, that the debates over words and pronouns even is not just an abstraction or a distraction, but that it actually carries with it all of these premises. You know, if you can redefine the pronouns, you're redefining the way we understand human nature, and the left is very, very good at that. So if we are going to have a nominee in 2024, whether it's Trump or someone else, I want them to be just as poetic as the Donald.
Of course, that most on the left would say that climate change is the greatest threat to human nature, and you probably would argue with that phrase at all. But let's go to this. Kamala Harris, the Vice President of the United States, a Californian, at the border this week, something a lot of folks on the right had been asking her to do for some time, finally making that trip. Your takeaway, are you satisfied now that she's gone to the border?
I want Joe Biden to go to the border, and I think Joe Biden recognizes that the easiest way that he can avoid get out of this issue is by sending Kamala Harris. I think basically what Joe did was picked up Kamala and tossed her in front of this bus of this very difficult issue for them. So Joe Biden realizes this is a lose-lose situation for him, which is why I think he's sending his number 2.
All right, Michael, you know we like to play music on this show. So this week we want to play some music from you. I stumbled upon this online. This is video of you from last Christmas. What's going on here?
You know, we here at the Daily Wire, I think we're just spending too much time at the office. We're really going crazy. That is my friend and colleague, Jeremy Boring, head of the Daily Wire. You know, people say conservatives don't have culture. I think maybe we've got a little too much culture here at the Daily Wire. We got to dial it back.
That is one version of culture. We will talk gun control next, but first we leave you with Michael Knowles and this Christmas hit in the middle of summer. Take it away.
Choirs will be singing Silent Night, Christmas carols by candlelight.
The next step is to defend this common sense, constitutional, lawful gun law.
This week I spoke with California Attorney General Rob Bonta about his fight to keep California's assault weapons ban. Look for that story at youtube.com/Elex Michelson. Up next, an issue is surprise. Stay with us. It's really sweet. You're not going to want to miss it. Please welcome Pete Buttigieg. Back in February of last year, we teamed up with USC for a live town hall event with then Mayor Pete Buttigieg. Here's a look at our behind-the-scenes crew. For several days, we worked with USC's crew to set up this elaborate event. Well, our stage manager, Matt, was working extra hard behind the scenes. In fact, he met the love of his life that week on the USC crew. They ended up quarantining together for the pandemic, and this week, Matt popped the question, and Melissa said yes. Check out their beautiful pictures. All right, Matt, you got to come up here, and since you're the stage manager, take the chair in for yourself. I've got a mic here. Congratulations, our first issue is wedding coming up.
Thank you, matchmaker.
Yeah.
I mean, I owe you, because if this show didn't exist, I never would have met her.
Isn't that wild?
It's wild. I mean, you never know what's going to happen in the future and what can make you happy.
And, you know, you were such an eligible bachelor. It's great that you found somebody that's bringing you, making you commit.
Yeah, exactly. She makes me happy, and couldn't be happier.
Well, we are so excited for you. I brought some champagne, and I thought it would only be fitting to drink it out of the issue is mug, right? So here we go. Let's hope it doesn't get messy here. Let's see how strong I am. There it is. Woo!
Cheers.
Cheers to you.
Cheers. Thank you.
Cheers
Alex.
to
Thank
you and to our crew. We love you,
The whole
Matt.
crew.
Congratulations, Melissa. And we're going to leave you with Bruno Mars because I don't think we're supposed to do this, to drink this on TV. So we'll go to the video. Cheers, man. Congratulations.
Cheers, everyone. To the issue is.
Yeah, to the issue.
I wanna marry you. Is it the look in your eyes?